Esther was the epitome of elegance and poise. As the wife of a pastor, she was revered and admired by the women in her church and community. Her husband, Pastor Peter, was a highly respected man of God who was a general overseer of one of the mega churches in the country. Esther's beauty was undeniable. She was blessed with smooth dark skin, almond-shaped eyes, and a smile that could lit up a room. She always carried herself with grace, always dressed in modest and stunning outfits befitting for the wife of a man of God. Not only was she a role model for the women in her church and community, she also played a significant role in her husband's ministry. Esther often stood in for her husband, preaching powerful sermons that left the congregation in awe whenever her husband was not around. Her influence stretched beyond the walls of her church as she represented Pastor Peter at various Christian gatherings and conferences. However, behind this godly image, Esther was living with a secret, a dark part of her life she always thought that she could suppress. A desire that had harbored since she was a child. She was attracted to women, a secret she thought she could overcome by marrying a pastor. She was introduced into this at a very young age by her nanny. Esther was an only child. Both of her parents were high ranking government officials who were too preoccupied with their careers to pay so much attention to her. She was she was left in the care of her nanny, a woman who had different kind of affection for the young girl. What started as an innocent affection from the nanny turned into something much more. Esther was introduced to the feelings she did not understand, and over time, she became so accustomed to the attention. As Esther grew older, these feelings grew with her. She had several relationships with only women until she met Peter. Esther believed that marrying a pastor would help her overcome the feelings that she had for her fellow women. She thought that the love and sanctity of the marriage would cleanse her of the desire she had learned to suppress. However, she was wrong because she never felt anything for her husband beyond admiration. Each time she was making out with her husband, she found herself imagining and fantasizing about the face of another woman. For years, Esther surpassed her urge. She prayed fervently and fasted, hoping that God would remove the burden of her desire. Yet the longing never left her. She became a master of hiding her feelings. Continued to be the perfect pastor's wife in the public, while battling an inner war in private. Esther remained faithful to her husband, or so it appeared. Eyes, her eyes never wandered towards another man, but her heart always longed for the warm and touch of a woman. Every day in her life was a constant battle, but she remained faithful. Until one fateful day, Esther traveled with a female personal assistant called Angela and a church driver to attend a church conference in another town. Esther delivered a very powerful sermon in the conference to the admiration of everyone present. So after a long day of service and meeting, they headed to the hotel where they were supposed to spend the night. When they arrived, the hotel manager informed them that only two rooms were available, and without hesitation, Esther asked the driver to take one of the rooms while she shared the other with Angela. This plan seems innocent enough because Angela had always been her, her side and they had always had a sister relationship for years. As they settled in, Esther's phone rang. It was her husband, Pastor Peter, who was calling. He was calling to check up on her. Esther stepped outside to answer the call. As she spoke with him, she smiled and reassured him that everything was fine. They exchanged loving words before she returned to her room. When Esther ended the call, she headed back to the hotel room. But when she opened the door, she was met with an unexpected sight. Angela was standing in front of the mirror and she was undressing. Esther froze. Her eyes were locked on Angela's smooth and delicate skin. She tried to avert her gaze, but it was too late because Angela had already seen her lusting after her body from the mirror. Do you like what you see? Angela asked in a soft and tasty tone, catching Esther completely off guard. Esther stammered, "What are you talking about?" she asked, but Angela moved closer. This time, her eyes were locked seductively into Esther. "I saw how you were looking at me. Do you want a taste?" "It is soft, succulent, and juicy," she said in the most inviting voice. "Stop this right now." Esther's voice trembled as she tried to regain control. She could feel the walls of her restraint crumbling, but she couldn't let this happen. She was a pastor's wife, she thought to herself, but Angela was relentless. She leaned in and kissed Esther gently on the lips. And in that moment, years of surprise desire exploded within her. Esther lost all control and they found themselves entangled, lips locked in a passionate embrace. And for the first time in years, Esther felt alive again. From that day on, Esther's relationship with Angela changed. They began meeting in secret, finding every opportunity to be alone together. They would meet in sacred spots after church events, finding solace in each other's arms. Of the forbidden affair consumed Esther, and for once she was truly happy. One of the time they met up in a small park near the church, hidden behind tall trees. As they embraced, the cold evening breeze swept through their hair, but Esther's heart raced with heat. The next meeting was at the church guest house after an outreach event where they spent the night together, wrapped in each other's arms. Another meeting took place during Women's Fellowship retreat, where they sneaked out in the middle of the night to the toilet. They turned on the shower and the water dripped on them as they shared their secret moment. Every meeting left Esther more addicted and more trapped in the web she knew she could never escape. One weekend, as Esther's birthday was approaching, her husband, Pastor Peter, wanted it to be a grand celebration. He instructed Angela to assist in preparation for the event. So Angela was asked to come over to the house. The weekend was set and the house was filled with activity. That night, as everyone retired to their rooms, Esther sneaked out of her matrimonial bed and tiptoed to the guest room where Angela was staying. Angela was awake and waiting. As soon as Esther entered, Angela smiled, her eyes lighting up. "I know you. I know you're awake," she whispered. Then Esther sighed and said, "Please, this is not why I'm here. Angela, we need to be very careful this weekend," she said softly. "No one should find out about us," she cautioned. Then she turned to make her way to leave. But as Esther turned to leave, Angela grabbed her hand and pulled her in for a deep kiss. Esther could not resist. She melted into Angela's hand, and soon they were lost in each other's embrace once again. In the quiet of the night, Pastor Peter woke up and reached out for his wife, but she was not there. He frowned and sat up, calling her name softly, but there was no response. He got out of bed, checked the bathroom, checked the kitchen, and even the sitting room. Yet Esther was nowhere to be found. As he passed the guest room where Angela was staying, he heard some noise coming from the room. Then curiosity got the better part of him. He noticed that the door was slightly ajar. Then he peeped, but what he saw sank his heart. He pushed the door open and was met with a sight that shocked his soul. There in the dim light of the room was his wife, entangled with her with a personal assistant. Esther, his voice boomed, shaking the walls of the room. Both Esther and Angela scrambled out of the bed. Their faces were pale with shock. Angela hurriedly grabbed her clothes and bottled out from the room, leaving Esther standing there trembling. Pastor Peter stood in the doorway. His chest was heavy with anger and disbelief. Esther, what is this? His voice was low, but filled with fury, his eyes widened in horror. Esther panicked and was ashamed. She quickly dressed up and fell to her knees. Honey, please, I can explain. Please, please listen to me. Honey, please, I can explain. Explain what? Pastor Peter's voice cracked with pain. How long have you been committing this? This abomination under my roof? In my own home? Esther, how long has this been going on? He asked. She streamed down Esther's face as she sobbed. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I never wanted to hurt you. Her husband glared at her. His face clenched. I mean, how long, Esther? Answer me, he thundered. Esther swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. It started a few months ago with Angela, but it's something I've struggled with since I was a young child. The pastor's eyes widened, even in disbelief. Since you were young? What do you mean? He asked. Esther took a deep breath, knowing she had to confess everything if she had any hope of being forgiven. My parents were always busy, so I was raised by a nanny. She was the one that introduced me to this earth, these desires, these feelings that I've been longing to cope, that I've been longing. I have carried them with me ever since. I thought that marrying you would help me, but I couldn't stop. Please have mercy and forgive me. Pastor Peter's face twisted with disgust and hurt. You have been living a lie with me all this while, Esther. Preaching in my own church, representing me while harboring such a dark secret. I trusted you, Esther. I made you the mother of my home, and this is what you have done? He asked. Esther crawled towards him, her hands clutching his leg as she sobbed. I am begging you, please don't expose me. Please help me keep this secret, Esther begged. But Pastor Peter pulled away from her, shaking his head. I can't even look at you right now, Esther. I can't believe you've destroyed everything we've built, our marriage, our home, even my ministry. What will people see if this gets out, Esther? He asked. Esther had nothing to say. The shame, the guilt, it was all crushing down on her. But more than anything, she feared losing her family, her children, her husband's love. Pastor Peter paced around the room. His mind was racing. Do you know what will happen if people find out about this? Your reputation, your life will be ruined, Esther. Everything you've built will be ruined, Esther, he said. Please, I will do anything to fix this, Esther said. Please don't expose me. Please, I love you, my husband. She begged, but her husband's face was hard. His heart seemingly closed off to her. Please, you love me. You don't know what love is, Esther, said the husband. You have been keeping such a dark secret from me, and now you expect me to just forgive and forget? I do love you, I do. I was just lost. I was confused, Esther cried. Pastor Peter shook his head in disgust. I am taking my kids and we are leaving this house. I will expose you to the world. I will let them know the real you. You don't deserve to be a mother to my children. Grace, Esther's entire body shook as she glitched to her feet and to his feet. Tears streaming down her face. No, please, my love, don't take my children. Please, I'll do anything. Just give me a chance to make things right, she said. Pastor Peter turned and stopped for a moment, looking down at his wife with a mix of fury and sorrow. How can I ever trust you again? You shattered everything we have built. He he said angrily. I will step down from everything. From the church, from the women's ministry, everything. I will do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. Esther begged, her voice trembling. For a moment, silence filled the room. Pastor Peter stared at his wife, his mind torn between anger, betrayal, and the vows they had made. Esther collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, and unsure if she will ever be forgiven by her husband. Will Pastor Peter ever forgive her? Or will he go ahead and expose her? Let's find out in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more of such stories. I hope you enjoyed this. Kindly subscribe to this channel if you've not, and please put on the bell notification so that you can know when I post the next episode. Also, don't forget to drop a comment, like, share the video. Thank you.